Season 1 of Alliance Wars has just begun. This is actually the first Alliance War of the new season, and for Loki, at the moment, we're ranked 50th in the world, which is not too bad. In terms of rewards, by the end of the season, I think that puts us in this Platinum 1 bracket. But, of course, it'd be really nice if we can just go one bracket higher into this Master range. But the problem is, we gotta be top 20th in the entire world. Top 20th, not just in terms of war rating, but top 20th in terms of overall points throughout the season. So it's going to be pretty difficult to do, and the best way to get points at the moment, the best strategy is just to not die. It's that simple, guys. You just don't die to get as many of these attacker bonuses as possible. It's really the deciding factor in wars, which is a good thing because it's the skill part of wars. Because a lot of alliances running either very high defender diversity or completely maxed out defender diversity. So it's pretty much all on who dies fewer times. So as a result of that, I went ahead and ditched the suicide masteries in favor of a mastery build that's a little bit more Alliance War focused, something that's going to give me a little bit more survivability and hopefully cause me to die the least amount of times possible. That's what I was trying to come up with for this mastery build, and I want to show you guys exactly what I'll be running. Now, this build, a couple of things before I get into it. Number one, this is not a build for every single person to use. This is a build that is tailored around the champions that I'm bringing for the path that I'm taking on, and it also could change throughout the season depending on how my champions change and what I find to be helpful and not helpful. So things could absolutely change here. But the build, again, the focus is more on defense and utility to survive. Even if I make some mistakes and I get caught a few times throughout the fight, hopefully I'll survive long enough to recover and still take down the enemy, even if it's a little bit slower than it has been in the past. So my build here, starting out in the offensive tree, I do have a pretty standard left half of the tree here with maxed out precision, maxed out cruelty. I have 1 point in courage for those times that I drop below 50% health, which, if you watch my Alliance War videos, you know that happens almost every single fight. So courage, very good mastery there for that. And then the right half is where it gets a little bit different. I drop suicide masteries, and most people that drop suicide masteries, they still tend to keep points in glass cannon. And glass cannon's very tempting, and depending on the champions that I'm bringing, I would like to have glass cannon. But the most common group of champions that I'm bringing at the moment for my path is Stark Spidey, who gains a lot of attack already from poise charges, so this small amount of attack is not going to mean much for me, and actually rather have the health. Void, who deals most of his damage. I have him there for his reverse healing abilities to take down the buffet recovery node, node 24 in Alliance War. So I don't really care about his attack. I just want to be as tanky as possible. I want to have the highest survivability as possible. So this is actually not a beneficial mastery for Void. And then Blade is my other champion, other most common champion. And for Blade, I would like to have Glass Cannon actually, but 2 out of 3, Stark Spidey and Void, not really in favor for it, so I went ahead without it. Now, again, I'm bringing Void, so that's why I have Despair maxed out. You don't need to have Despair maxed out for Void, but it just gives me as close to 100% chance as possible of getting through Node 24 without dying. I'm still going to make mistakes, I'm sure, from time to time, and something's going to happen, but I have a very high chance of not dying if I have Despair maxed out, along with some of the other masteries that I'm going to get to in just a bit here. Otherwise, for the rest of the nodes, I would not have this mastery maxed out. I'm running Deep Wounds here just because I do need some extra damage, and it does increase the survivability of Blade, giving him those the longer bleeds, which gives him more power gain, which allows him to heal more. So on top of damage, it's just like an all-around amazing mastery for Blade. And then I also have Assassin here, just for some kind of damage boost without any downsides, along with that, lowering defensive ability accuracy. That's actually helped me out in Alliance War and saved me a death before. So yeah, having Assassin, it's pretty nice. I have considered dropping a few points out in favor for some other masteries, but at the moment, at least, I am going to be running Assassin maxed out. Now, defensive tree is where it gets really interesting, as I wanted to have maxed out Resonate and maxed out Inequity. If you can have 6 debuffs on the opponent, one of them being Resonate here, then that alone reduces all of their attack by 49%. It cuts it in half pretty much. And it goes from, having these attackers that can kill you in like a single combo to attackers that have as much attack as like a dual partner almost. A little bit more than that depending on the node, but bottom line is it does reduce their attack by a ton. So yeah, I like these masteries. Inequity, it is bugged at the moment, but Kabam's aware of it and they're working on it. They're working on a fix. So once that is fixed, then this is going to be a very powerful mastery depending on the champions that you bring. Again, the champions that I bring, Void applies a lot of debuffs, so this will max out the damage reduction for Void. Blade, if you use his L1, has very long bleed duration, so you might not be able to max out this ability, but you can definitely reduce incoming damage by quite a bit. Combine that with his ability to heal while blocking and everything, and you can probably out-heal any kind of incoming chip damage, depending on the opponent. Not in every circumstance for sure, but depending on the opponent, you can actually out-heal the chip damage with their reduced attack and some of these other masteries as well. Stark Spidey is a little bit of an unusual case too, because while he doesn't apply a lot of debuffs, he applies Taunt, and Taunt actually reduces attack by 40%. I didn't even know that for the longest time. I just found that out the other day. But if you have Taunt on the enemy, it reduces their attack by 40%. Then you have 13% here if you apply Resonate, and that's 2 debuffs, so you actually reduce their attack by another 12% with Inequity here, for a total of well, let's just say a lot of attack reduction. I don't know the number off the top of my head. But yeah, you're reducing their overall attack by a lot. Combine that with something like physical resistance, where you're reducing incoming damage by an additional 6.5%, and yeah, you end up with some very tanky champions. You could still get taken out pretty quick just because of how beefy some of these nodes are, but chances are, if you make a mistake, you can eat a 5-hit combo if you have some debuffs on the enemy, and not instantly lose the fight. And you might have to heal up after for the next node or something like that, but it's worth it if it can save you that death, and if you can still gain those full attack bonus points. Now, there are a couple of masteries here that may get switched around at some point. I mean, of course, I do have to have 15 points in the left half of the tree in order to unlock Resonate and Inequity. And I opted to go with Recovery. And Recovery, it's really just for Blade. The other 2 champions, they don't heal. Void has a potential with Killmonger, but I haven't tested that out yet to know if that's any good. Plus, I don't even have Killmonger anyway, so yeah, for now it's just for Blade, and I guess it does help with willpower too, but really not enough to justify spending those points. But the healing is so nice with Blade that I am keeping it at the moment. I might go ahead and change that out in favor for either energy resistance here, which will help against certain enemies like Dormammu and his degeneration, or Magic's Limber, or I might try to figure out a way to max Stand Your Ground just to be a little bit more of a nuisance for my defenders. Not really, it wouldn't really help me out offensively, but for my defenders, having that maxed out could be pretty annoying depending on which defenders I have and which nodes I put them on. Essentially, I would need 6 points to max out Stand Your Ground, and what I think I would do is drop 3 points out of Recovery, 1 point out of Salve, and then 2 points out of Physical Resistance to get the 1 point in Perfect Block and 5 points in Stand Your Ground. So it's a bit of a trade-off and not one that I'm willing to make at this time, but we'll see. I could change to it. Now, the utility tree is pretty bare bones. I do have Stupefy maxed out, as people are running maxed out Limber. It's very common to fight somebody with maxed out Limber or a Limber node where you really need this maxed out Stupefy. This is pretty much an essential mastery as far as I'm concerned, if you plan on parrying at all in these fights. And I do have maxed out parry as well. This is just for the damage reduction. If you're not familiar with the damage reduction between rank 1 and rank 3, I did make a parry testing video that I will link in the description of this video, so you can check that out. But without watching it, I'll spoil it for you guys. It does make a pretty big difference having all 3 points in parry, and it is going to, throughout the course of fight, if you parry 4 or 5 times, something like that, it could definitely save you quite a bit of HP having this maxed out. Now, something that I am going to be doing is when I set my defenders, I'm going to recover my utility masteries, and I'm going to max out Limber here to gain that 48% reduction in stun duration. I'll still put 1 point into parry, 1 point in dexterity, and 1 point into stupefy. I'll place my defenders, then I'll hit recovery again, and I'll go back to the setup that you are currently looking at right now. I did consider, just a couple of considerations to go over. I did consider dropping 2 points in parry. That would allow me to, keep some other of these defensive options along with getting stand your ground, that kind of thing. I did consider running only 1 point into Resonate, but at the end of the day, I kind of like having all 3 points in Resonate. I feel like the extra damage reduction, reducing their attack, it's just nice. It's just nice. Not only does it reduce their attack damage if they land like a 5-hit combo on you, but it also reduces that kind of unavoidable damage like Dormammu's Degeneration or Magic's Limber. Limbo. I always call it Limber. Reducing Magic's Limbo. It could be the difference between you winning and losing that fight. So I do like having that maxed out, and there really wasn't a whole lot else that I was considering. I did consider having some points in Serum Science, and I may put points in here if I get a 5-star Void, and if I take him to other fights outside of the buffet recovery node. I did consider a couple points into Collar Tech, since I do run Stark Spidey for a lot of the fights. I did consider, Petrify and Pacify and everything like that. Mystic Dispersion is not really a consideration with the attackers that I'm bringing. I know a lot of people will suggest that I bring Voodoo for certain fights, but I'm really not that good with Voodoo. I need more time to practice with him. Maybe if I get good with the champion, maybe I would take him in, but that's a big maybe at this point. Or maybe if I take in Mephisto, because I do like Mephisto, and I could see his potential as attacker for me more than someone like Voodoo. So if I get a 5-star Mephisto, maybe I'll consider some kind of Mystic Dispersion build. That also would not be out of the question. But at the moment, guys, that is the build. As I said before, this is not something that you should just straight copy for your own play. Some of these masteries are very expensive as well. Resonate is pretty much the most expensive mastery in the game. Point for point, it's 2 Carbonadium cores per level. The only thing more expensive than that per level is like the final level of these class mastery cores that cost a ridiculous amount of units. But yeah, I do think that every point I have in here is worth it. And although, like I said, it might change throughout the season or at the start of Season 2 or something, this, for now, is my mastery build. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video and the explanation, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.